my friend?
I'm fine. I'm fine. What about you? It's always a pleasure to see you.
It's a pleasure to meet you too, man. How are you
Long time.
doing?
Everything is fine. How is Cairo?
It's okay. Weather start to be better, by the way. Start to
Good.
be, yeah, especially at night, start to be better the way.
Good.
But
Like you
it's
are.
everything is okay. Just very expensive as all over the world, you know.
The price going up,
Yeah,
right?
of course, of course, of course. Yeah,
Yeah. Everywhere the same.
yeah.
Good.
Will not see you close to. Will not see you in Cairo in a closer time.
Maybe I'm not sure yet, but maybe this year.
You're welcome.
Maybe.
You're welcome, sir.
Yeah, I miss Cairo.
Welcome anytime.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Matuzov. Can you hear me as well?
Yes, I hear you absolutely clear.
I can hear you as well. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you among us.
Thank you.
As we have still members of press joining us, we will delay the begin for 5 minutes. So we will start 3:05 at the local time here. I cannot hear you. You are muted. You have to unmute.
Okay,
Perfect.
it's
Now
better. Fine, thank you.
How are you?
Vision is also good. Okay,
Yes, vision is perfect. Vision is good.
excellent.
See you and we can hear you loud and clearly. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Halil Bey, merhabalar. Beni duyuyor musunuz? Good afternoon.
Merhaba, good afternoon. How is everything going?
Fine, thank you.
Welcome. So you have the stormy sea behind you. This is an introduction.
And Milgem.
All right. Great. So as we have still members of press joining us, we have delayed the begin for 2 minutes now, 2 minutes left, and then we will start our webinar. Just 2 minutes of patience, I would ask you for. Yes, I would also like to announce that this webinar is also transmitted via our YouTube channel live. Let me check. It will be watched also outside of this webinar, but of course, YouTube is a one-way airing method. So questions will come only from those who participate in the webinar, but your presentations and your opinions and arguments will be transmitted on YouTube and will be kept available there also after the finishing of the webinar. So then we have 3:05 in Turkish local time. I propose that we start right away. My name is Yunus Soner. I am editor of United World International, and I would like to welcome all of you, especially our distinguished guests from Russia, Turkey, and Egypt, and all the members of press participating from various countries in our webinar on what we titled the Grain War. Just to give a brief introduction, as you all know, end of July, international agreements under the auspices of the United Nations were signed between Ukraine, Turkey, and Russia concerning the export of grain products from Ukrainian ports, as well as the export of grain products and fertilizers from Russia to the world. This agreement was scheduled for 3 months at the beginning, and these days there is a huge debate and diplomatic negotiations whether it will be prolonged or not. There is some criticism on the way how this agreement was applied. One part of the criticism refers to the fact that the main part of the Ukrainian grain exports were headed towards European countries and not, as it had been claimed before, to African or Asian or Latin American countries. And the second criticism which exists also is that the part of the agreement that sanctions against Russian exports of grains and also fertilizers. Russia is one of the main exporters of fertilizers globally. That these sanctions were not lifted and Russia's exports were not liberated. Now, the Western side claims there are no such sanctions on Russian exports, but we know that, for instance, though the export of these products may be permitted, the insurance, for instance, of ships which transport these products to global markets, to Africa, Asia, and elsewhere, these insurance companies are being targeted, for instance, by sanctions as well. So we will discuss the questions. And recently, another important point was that with the renegotiation of the prolongation of this agreement, the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan made a statement at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in Samarkand recently in Uzbekistan, where he stated that he is hopeful about the possible prolongation and that he's hopeful to get these grains, especially to those countries which are in most need of it. And similarly, the Russian President Vladimir Putin also made this a statement on the same summit, in the same conference, where he also declared he was expecting an agreement, a compromise on the grain exports and fertilizer exports. He criticized the continuing sanctions on Russian exports, and he also stated, meanwhile, that he is hopeful that an agreement might be achieved to prolong this grain exportation and the according regime. So to discuss these matters, which are not only a matter of grain exports and insurances, but actually a matter of global food security, matters of free trade, matters of international cooperation, matters of multipolarity, actually. We have 4 invited guests. One of them is currently in a very important meeting. This is Mr. Omaru Diarra. He's Minister from Humanitarian Action in Mali. We hope that he will be able to join this meeting later on. We are waiting for him. So we have a distinguished guest from the Russian Federation, Vyacheslav Matusov. He's an experienced Soviet and Russian diplomat. He's also an experienced diplomat on Middle Eastern and West Asian affairs. He speaks fluent Arabic. He has had leading roles in Russian-Syrian relations. I think he's also an expert on Lebanon, and he will be the first one to present present us his opinions. Second, we have Dr. Sherif Fayyad. Dr. Sherif Fayyad joins us from Cairo. Excuse me, I'm correcting. The second person who will be presenting will be Mr. Halil Özsaraç. He's retired Turkish Navy staff captain. You see him with the sea behind him. I would also welcome you again. Now, his participation is in so far important as Turkey is first part of these mediation efforts. The grain transports go via the Black Sea. And we know that, interestingly, these negotiations are led and accompanied by the defense ministries of the different sides. So it shows that our title, The Grain War, is to a certain degree justified. And Mr. Özsaraç is a retired Turkish Navy staff captain. He will inform us about a bit the history of food and politics, and then he will talk about the current actual situation around this grain agreement and its geopolitical aspect. And third, we have Dr. Sherif Fayyad. I was a bit too fast to get to Cairo. My apologies. He's joining us from Cairo, from the Arab Republic of Egypt. He has a PhD in, what's better for this purpose, agricultural economics. He is member of the political bureau of the Progressive Party Egypt, the Tagamu Party, and he is also a very valued guest because Egypt is one of the most important recipients of these grain exports departing from Ukraine or from Russia. So he will maybe provide us a bit from the perspective of those countries that receive these imports and how they are affected by these Western sanctions regulating or limiting the grain trade and the fertilizer trade. And as I mentioned before, we hope that Mr. Diarra, the Minister for Humanitarian Action from Mali, will be able to join us later on. We will see that. So for the procedure, we will have a 15-minute approximately presentation by each of our participants, starting with Mr. Matuzov, continuing with Mr. Öztaraç, and then finishing with Mr. Fayad. And afterwards, after that, we have the questions and answers section where all of our journalists, invited journalists, can ask questions. And also, I'm sure that some members of our website will also have different questions, including myself. For the questions and answers part, I would ask those who would like to ask a question to use the chat function, which you see below, and request that you would like to ask a question so I can make a list and put some, bring some order in there. With that, again, I would like to welcome all of you in the name of United World to our webinar titled The Grain War, Sanctions, Hunger, and the Quest for a Multipolar World. And I would finish my words because I'm just the moderator here. And I'm very curious to listen to what Mr. Vyacheslav Matuzov has to say on that matter. You have the word, please, Mr. Matuzov.
Thank you very much for my opportunity to have an explanation about what is going on my opinion. The situation in the world, of course, is degrading because all this question arose after beginning of Russian military operation, special military operation in Ukraine. And till that time, we didn't even know that the world is suffering and the connection, a supply of all these food materials materials and other things from Russia and Ukraine. We consider that main producers of grain is United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. But now we found out that maybe all the world is dependent on this results of Russian and Ukrainian harvest this year. Of course, we face this year with very grave situation in weather conditions in Europe, in Africa, in all the world. And except Russia, maybe, because Russia had some good privileged position in the weather conditions this summer. So I think that Russia connected this decision to avoid any accusations that Russian military operation is the obstacle on the way of hunger, world hunger. That is what a main argument that was pushed to Russia, that Russia is making some military exercises in Ukraine that prevent the world from selling Ukrainian grain, which is dependent on hunger in very big part of the world, especially in the third world, in Africa and Asia countries. But when it was achieved, according to the previous information, because of a meeting in Turkey, in Istanbul, our Minister of Foreign Affairs, his colleague from Turkey, and under the aegis of General Secretary of the United Nations, we found out that there are a way to solve this issue positively. Russia made a decision to open a way for cargo vessels from Odessa, Nikolaev, Achakov, many other ports from Ukraine to solve this issue. Issue was, I remind once again, hungry of third world, African and Asian. This was the main argument for accusation Russia of be responsible for hunger. So till now, 15, as I know, vessels were left Ukrainian ports, seaports, with grain, and 14 from 15 were sent to European countries, and only one vessel was sent to those who are suffering hunger, as it was in the very beginning of politicized picture that were distributed all mass media in the world, that world hunger is responsible Russia. And when it was occurred that grain was sent from Ukraine to outside through Turkish assistance for Europe, for the world, it became that 14 from 15 were sent to Europe, but not grain that is only for feeding people. That grain was mainly for feeding animals and for food, not food. So fourage, that was mainly demand. So we can conclude that all this propaganda before the beginning was made to provide European countries with some assistance from Russian and Ukrainian grain. Okay, never mind. Also, I can say that Russia and Ukraine, when they agreed to open opportunity, not only to Ukraine, it was one packet, Ukrainian and Russian grain and Russian chemical, chemical materials to be sent. And what we met with problems. I know that appearance here in this forum, Egyptian friends, maybe clarify the situation as an example. How can we solve all the problems that we face today? Because problems are really serious. Why? Because the United States, European countries who are receiving Ukrainian grain according to the agreement were not refused, didn't refuse from these restrictions, financial restrictions, and all the things that were put before the Russian, including vessels who are not can be given the opportunity to be freely way to any other countries, and that's increased dramatically Russian prices for Russian grain. I can say that about the situation in Mali, and when representative minister, His Excellency Minister of Mali will participate, he will prove that the negotiations on grain to deal grain to Mali, it is also a second example. Where is the real problems? Because Mali has the money to pay for Russian grain, but the price was increased dramatically. Why? Because of sanctions. Sanctions who applied to Russia for Russian vessels, to Russian vessels, and so it's very difficult to transportation issue. And how to solve this problem? And bank exchange money. So we send grain, and who will pay money? And what is the way of payment? Because the United States register all bank in the world, including the African and Asian countries who involved in business relations with Russian firms were on the enlisted in the blacklist and will be sanctioned by the Western European and American financial centers. So no banks are ready to participate in these grain deals. And this was met with Mali, because Mali has no opportunity to, even for higher prices, not because Russia is, but because of sanctions. Hiring vessels and bringing by these vessels grain to Europe, to African countries is extremely high prices. And who is responsible, Russia or those who are imposed Russia's sanction policy? This way, why I applied to Egypt? Because Egypt has a positive example for grain dispatching to outside Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine is no problem of payment. They are receiving money without any delay, and so it is not a problem for Ukraine, but it's for Russia, because Russia and Ukraine in one packet. That was agreement made by Russian, Ukrainian, and Turkish representative under United States, that it will be packaged in one. Not only we let send Ukrainian grain. When we spoke about Ukrainian grain, we should understand that Ukrainian companies have no relations with this harvest. When we're speaking about Ukrainian grain, we should understand very clearly. The company who are sending grain from Ukraine is not Ukrainian. Glencore is it Ukrainian company? So all grain that is sending from Odessa, Nikolaev, Achakov, and other ports from Ukraine are Western companies, mainly European, but not only. So the deal is between Ukrainian, European, and European companies. That's why 14 of vessels coming to Europe, not to African countries. And Russia, who wants to send to Africa this grain, meeting response from the United States, from all London, from Great Britain, who are prohibited payment for Russian grain, who are making some problems for hiring vessels to bring this grain to African countries because of price policy and banking policy. Egypt has another picture. I hope that Egyptian representative will explain the positive results, because Egyptian grain company has its own fleet. They can bring grain from Russia, from Ukraine on their own opportunities. They have it. But the problem of banking, even Egypt, who has historical relations in buying grain from Russian Federation, met problems in banking payment. Why? Because even Suez Bank, who are responsible for grain selling and buying procedure, restrained from receiving money from Russia, for Russia, from Egyptian companies, because they're afraid of punishment from the United States and Great Britain. So how to solve this issue? The problem not in Russia, problem is the obstacles for the United States and Western banking system who provide hungering countries with grain from Russian Federation, because many grain from Ukraine mainly for feeding animals, not people. That's why we can say absolutely clear that all dealing with grain problem for solving hunger issue between African, Asian countries who needed feeded grain, should be solved outside of political struggle, military confrontation that we met in Ukraine. Because if we apply to business relations, and especially in these special conditions, it is hunger, it is severe weather conditions in all over the world, including Europe, including Africa, including Asia. We know that very well. But if it will be the subject of making problems for solving this hunger issue with according to political considerations, that is another question. So we should return to political considerations to solve it on political level, not in economical, not in financial, but it is result of only a special political stance that take the United States and impose of other countries, including those who have opportunity to buy grain, and they cannot because banking exchange is not operating properly. That's all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Matuzov. Very good presentation.
Thank you.
Clear picture, very structured, very enlightening. Thank you very much. And without much hesitation, I will ask now Mr. Özsaraç to present his view. And I think you have also some presentations, Mr. Özsaraç. My colleagues will help to project them. You have the floor, please.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me as a speaker to this distinguished webinar. I am really very honored. I would like to start my presentation by greeting the audience. Let's begin. In the history of humanity, food has always been abundant in some geographies, scarce in others, and is on a journey from food abundance to food scarcity. And the most critical part of this journey is on the seas. Well, I'd like to share my screen. Can I have a permission for that? Yeah. Yes, I think that's okay. Let me give you some examples of centuries ago. The Delian League, founded in 477 BC, was established. The first one, please. The first one. Yeah. Was established to ensure the maritime trade security of Greece, which consisted of 179 small city-states. Since food was mostly traded by sea at that time, the Greek city-states had to become sailors and combine their military capabilities at sea to ensure their food security. The Attica Delos Naval Union fought the Persians so that wheat coming south from the Black Sea could come to their lands. And this narrow waterway for which they fought for sovereignty was the Istanbul and Çanakkale Straits, known today as the Turkish Straits and Sea of Marmara. The Attica-Delos Naval Union, today's NATO-like defense alliance, as soon as they drove the Persians away from the Sea of Islands, Sea of Islands, they had difficulty in sharing this rich food trade among themselves. When the Peloponnesian League, the next reflect, please, the second one. Yes, when the Peloponnesian League, led by the Spartans, won the battle for food routes between 431 BC and 404 BC, about for 27 years, the Athenian Union, which was trying to become an empire, was dissolved. As you can see, in the ancient periods of history, when food turned into a commodity sold to distant geographies, it began to be transported from the seas and was the subject of long wars. Food that countries to be transported from the seas will continue to be the subject of wars in the future. Let's continue with another example. The example I will give this time also shows that food has the power to influence distant geographies with a very indirect systematics in international relations. The next slide, please. Between 1482 and 1492, in the Iberian Peninsula, the last Muslim state in Andalusia, the state of Beni Ahmer, was fighting for life and death against the kingdoms of Castile and Aragon in Granada. The Beni Ahmer state asked for help from the Ottoman and Mamluk states in the Eastern Mediterranean. The Ottoman Empire was unable to take its navy to the Mediterranean due to the blackmail of Cem Sultan, which had fallen into the hands of France. The Mamluk state was already without a navy. The Muslims of Andalusia have not been able to get help from anyone other than a limited number of Turkish pirates. I mean, raiding chieftains in the Mediterranean. The next slide, please. While the war for life and death in Andalusia continued, the Ottoman and Mamluk states began to fight among themselves between 1485 and 1491. The Ottoman Mamluk War had lasted for 6 years. Eventually, both states would agree to return to pre-war borders. While this unnecessary war was going on, there was a great famine in Syria in 1489. Since it was at war with the Ottoman Empire, the Mamluk state could not bring wheat from the Black Sea under the control of Ottoman state. The Mamluks then wanted to buy Sicilian wheat from King Ferdinand II of Aragon, who ruled Sicily. The King of Aragon, who received a special permission from the papacy for the sale of wheat to Syria, would use the money for the Sicilian wheat he sold to the Mamluk state that year to cover the costs of his military campaign. in Granada. You see the result from the picture. This is an exemplary testimony of what international balances can sometimes make states do. Sadly, the Mamluk state, which embraced the Caliphate, the protector of the Muslims, became the financier of the Catholic attack on Granada. As a matter of fact, 2 years after this large-scale wheat trade, the last Muslim state in Andalusia was destroyed, and within a few years, there was no trace of the Muslim and Jewish population facing the threat of genocide on the Spanish lands. This is an example of how the lack of food that emerged in a war between two Muslim states in the Eastern Mediterranean led to the collapse of another Muslim state in the Western Mediterranean. Food problems in other geographies are critical for everyone, as they have the potential to indirect and destructive power. The next slide, please. In addition, the power of small cake, the power of small scale, asymmetrical, and hybrid military activities on food, apart from wars in which large-scale powers are shifted to different geographies, can be seen all the time. Let me give you two examples from history again. Catholic sailors who dominated the Sea of Islands agency between 12th and 14th centuries plundered the Muslims and Orthodox Christian people settled on the coasts of Anatolia and the Balkans. These colonizers, who exhausted the economic resources of the coasts and ports of the Sea of Islands, along with their human resources, also targeted the ships loaded with food coming from the Black Sea and passing through the Turkish Straits. The Ottoman Empire, which was strengthened on land and partly from the Sea of Marmara, first tried to facilitate the export of food to Venetians and Genoese duchies, which dominated the islands in the Sea of Islands, in order to protect the Muslim and Orthodox Christian peoples living on its coasts. In other words, the Ottomans extended a hand of peace to the Catholics through food. However, when piracy activities did not stop, the sale of foodstuffs to the islands of Mytilene, Chios, Limnos, and Rhodos, where Catholic pirates were based, was banned in 1390 through the Black Sea and Anatolia. However, these economic sanctions, which were food embargoes, did not have much effect on Catholic duchies who ruled the Asian islands. On the contrary, Ottoman maritime policies were radically changed when the Catholic duchies began to deal with more Catholic pirates and began to target more of the food tried to be brought to Anatolia from the sea. In other words, the Ottoman state, which had a high military power on land, started to become a sea power from 1390 onwards in order to combat Catholic hybrid warriors who asymmetrically threatened food security from the seas. The Ottoman state, which had no choice but to become a giant at sea to secure its food, first dominated the Silk Road by seizing the Turkish states and the Marmara, then the Black Sea, and the north of the Sea of Islands, Aegean Sea. The Ottoman Empire also tried to send the Turkish raiding chieftains led by Kemal Reis, that is the hybrid power in the sea, to the Western Mediterranean between 1473 and 1495 in order to balance the unstoppable attacks of Catholic world on the food traffic using the Silk Road. It was not yet understood, but as the Ottoman Empire increased its asymmetrical presence in the Western Mediterranean, that is, in the distant seas, it made it easier to secure food in its own seas. After Kemal Reis and other raiding chieftains returned to the Eastern Mediterranean in 1495, there was again an increase in the attempts of Catholic pirates to steal food in the Sea of Islands. In fact, the crisis-inducing event of the spring of 1508 was the fall of 60 ships loaded with grain into the hands of the Catholic pirates. When this incident had a bomb effect on the grain markets in Istanbul and increased the grain prices, as it happened today, and Ottoman galley fleet that would build a summer and winter outpost in the Island Sea, Aegean Sea, was quickly equipped and given to the command of Kemal Reis. Even Kemal Reis' name was enough to prevent a similar problem from happening again. And the next slide, please. Since the 1510s, the Ottoman Empire has sent all of the second generation Turkish pirates, that is, its asymmetrical power in the sea, to the Western Mediterranean, making the predatory West unable to threaten the food security in the Eastern Mediterranean. The Ottoman state, which captured this spice route after the Silk Road, maintained its power as long as it was able to maintain its ability to protect food traffic from distant seas. And as it lost this ability, it weakened and collapsed. The next one, please. Along with the vitality of food, the vitality of the seas in which food moves, I touched on the vitality of being strong in the seas far away from our own in terms of preserving our food. Now, let's come from the past to the present. Today, as in the past, the impact of the Black Sea on world nutrition is unmatched. When we look at the current data, approximately 12% of the food traded in the world in terms of calories departs from the Black Sea, ports of Russia and Ukraine. Using the Turkish Straits, the Sea of Islands, and the Eastern Mediterranean. Ukraine, whose grain exports were disrupted because it could not use its ports after Russia's large-scale military operation against the east of Ukraine on February 24th, initially wanted to make a plan to use the railway, but the railway option meant that 30 million tons of grain in Ukraine could be transported in 14 months using 300,000 wagons, increasing the cost of transportation by a few times. However, this level of food cargo can be transported with only 100 ships in 4 months, and much cheaper. The stranding of Ukrainian grain in the Black Sea has led to uneasiness in the Western world and an increase in food prices, as mentioned here. With Turkey's initiatives, this situation is being tried to be alleviated. The next slide, please. The food crisis scenarios that terrify the West are actually Africa's chronic problem. On the other hand, Ukrainian grain has never been a food that can go to chronically starving geographies. Ukrainian food feeds mainly the Mediterranean basin. In addition, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations has announced that the number of people facing chronic hunger will increase from 811 million in 2020 to 824.1 million in 2022 and 2023. In other words, the Ukraine crisis has the potential to increase the catastrophe of hunger by as much as only 1%. Only 1%. In this case, it would be unrealistic to portray Russia as the scapegoat for world famines. It's not realistic. In a little while, I will touch on the method of combating the hunger problems caused by imperialism in Africa and Asia, especially in the Sahel region. But first, I would like to draw attention to the potential of imperialism's power at sea to destroy humanity by stopping food traffic. The next slide, please. According to the United Nations, the urban population increases worldwide by about 150,000 people every day. You see these cities of 2030 on the map. I'd like to show you the main character of the Third World War and the main character of the wars in the future. If world population goes on gathering in urban day by day, does that mean the battlefields will be cities? It didn't. Urbanization means the increase of demand for natural resources, especially water, energy, and food. In the increase of demand for nature, in consequences of the fact that 80% of the global population live within 100 kilometers of the coast, a significant and even further increasing proportion of the world's population is living in urban littoral areas. Those urban littorals also host the major ports and trade hubs throughout the world. An area like this represents a complex, cluttered, and crowded environment indeed, linking the vital traffic at sea through key transportation hubs with the supply chain ashore, ensuring the flow of cargo. To tell the truth, due to urbanization, it has become very difficult to get results in land wars, and the cost has increased. This means the sea is the main place where you will take over your enemy without having to get lost in land wars, which are expensive and costly in terms of qualified human losses. Let's be realistic. Full-scale, high-intensity combat should be expected at seas, not lands. That's why all the geopolitical readings should be done over the seas. In fact, the struggle for maritime control was at all times a necessary condition for winning the war. But now it's an even more vital necessity to avoid genocide. That is, sea control has the potential to reduce the human population from 8 billion to 4 billion in a year. If no food comes from the sea, billions in the cities die. This is the main point I wanted to draw your attention to. The next slide, please. While the problem of hunger is Africa's problem today, it will also be all Asia's problem in the great wars of the future, because imperialism, which is a naval empire, will try to reach a result by using its power in the sea in its new Great War. The next slide, please. Let's come to the region that feels the hunger problem the most in the world today, the Sahel region in Africa. Thanks to Turkish non-governmental organizations, the Sahel is a region where I and my wife, who is a doctor, take a close interest and lend a helping hand. Many Turkish non-governmental organizations, for example, TAT, you see from the pictures, whose activities I follow closely, are making great efforts to help this region at least feed itself without expecting anything in return. The next slide, please. The predatory colonial West cannot admit that the hunger problems in the world are due to colonialism. It is a predatory Western behavior to explain the starvation of hundreds of millions of poor people living in many parts of Africa and Asia, such as Sahel, as you've seen on the map, with climatic conditions for a period of century or so. If the exploitation system catches you, it prevents you from going out to sea and then exploits you. Asia and Africa have been struggling for centuries with the colonialists who came from the sea and imprisoned them on land. The formula for getting rid of colonialism, imperialism, and starvation is in the seas. With their human and raw material resources confiscated, Asia and Africa must realize that they can only escape from marauding West by going out to seas from lands. Nowadays, NATO's love of Sahel draws attention. The 11th article of NATO's strategic concept, which was approved at the last summit in Madrid, interestingly emphasized the conflict, fragility, instability of the Sahel region in Africa, and mentions that the region offers a suitable environment for terrorist organizations and that people will be forced to migrate. As you can see, the expulsion of France from the starving Sahel required the United States to intervene in the region through NATO. It's not Russia's operation in Ukraine that is starving Africa, but imperialism itself. Imperialism is born with the sea, develops, grows, and disappears as it is removed from the sea. If it is removed from the sea, there will be no imperialism. Asia and Africa should maritime and cooperate in maritimization. For this, it is necessary to act with a vision based on the ownership of all sea trade routes around Asia and Africa by Asians and Africans, and the development and unification of defense opportunities from the sea. The next slide, please. I do not want to spend your time, and that's why let me summarize what to do. Third World War may bring deaths of billions by way of starvation instead of nuclear weapons. If there is still time, continental Asia should try to be strong at sea and protect the maritime trade routes together and prevent this war with the integrated deterrence of Asia. If being in a military bloc is delayed after the World War III, the surviving states of Asia should try a military bloc again. If Asian military bloc could be founded, it should be tried to be expanded to Africa, of course, to Sahel, from Red Sea to Atlantic. So an Asian bloc should form on the maritime trade routes and encircle Asia from the Black Sea to the Barents Sea. Russia with the Arctic and Black Sea, Turkey with the Black Sea, the Turkish states and the Eastern Mediterranean, Egypt with the Eastern Mediterranean, Suez, and the Red Sea, at least one of Yemen, Somalia, Djibouti, or Eritrea with Bab el-Mandeb Strait, at least one of the United Arab Emirates or Oman, as well as Iran with the Persian Gulf and Strait of Hormuz, at least one of Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia with Strait of Malacca, and China with West Pacific. All these countries should embrace all of Asia, securing the maritime trade routes around Asia. If this bloc stands firm in the seas, it will become stronger. It will also be a center of attraction for Asian states such as India and Pakistan, which have coasts to the sea, and the Turkish states and Afghanistan, which are Asian states that cannot reach the sea, and of course all African states. If it leaves NATO, the easiest link for the creation of such a maritime bloc is actually Turkey, because the 1936 Montreux Strait Convention is a temporary agreement, and its term expired in 1956, but it is being implemented even in 2022 today, because the whole world is in favor of its continuation. Turkey has the right to terminate this agreement. If the treaty is terminated, the internal waters regime will come into effect in the Turkish straits, and Turkey will have the right to determine the transit regime as it wishes. We should realize Asia military bloc by connecting our seas. Turkey must do this to connect the Asian seas. If strong Asia bloc founded, then it is easy to penetrate starving Africa by way of Red Sea and Mediterranean on Libya and Algeria. We wish Egypt to turn to Asia instead of predatory West, getting rid of Egypt's influence from the West and adopting the transitional regime in the Suez Canal to the interests of Asia is an important stage of our dream. The name of this dream is the Asian Sea Empire, which was never established in history. Only an Asian naval empire can cope with the huge naval empire of NATO, Quad, and AUKUS chain blocks that the predatory United States has established in the West. Under the leadership of Turkey, Russia, Egypt, Iran, and China, this dream should cease to be a dream. It should come to reality. We must seek ways to persuade the states controlling the sea lanes surrounding Asia to cooperate and join forces to fight imperialism and, of course, to fight imperialism-sourced starvation together. Gentlemen, thank you for your listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Öztürk. A very marvelous presentation spanning from the history until today. You also offered a perspective, an answer what to do. Thank you very, very much. It was very enlightening and very informative. And you also presented an example what happens when local, regional countries enter into conflict with each other, how imperialism in that moment gains. And you said, you presented the example of the Ottoman Empire entering into war with the Mamluk state. Well, the Ottoman Empire is now history, and the Mamluk state is history as well. But still, that logic applies to our day. And this comparison helps me to pass the word to our representative from the Arab Republic of Egypt, Dr. Fayyad. You have the word, Dr. Fayyad. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much for this invitation. Just I will try to speak in the time limited that you put it for me, and this 15 minutes. And at the same time, after I give my word, I will try to summarize, as our friend from Russia asked, to summarize what Egypt did through the crisis, especially for crisis that and what the experience of Egyptian experience of how we deal with this crisis, especially in the last year. First of all, I would like to thank you all for of your invitation today to participate in this event. The event that gathered some politicians and from some countries that try to evaluate the current political situation, especially in Russia-Ukrainian war, and to explain the false claims of Western countries that say this war caused a dramatic economic crisis all over the world that's suffering from nowadays. In the following words, I will concentrate on the economic situation and try to illustrate how the USA and the EU countries mislead the world by trying putting the responsibilities on the Russian side, while they are the main reasons for the economic situation, especially food crisis, the world are suffering from nowadays. First of all, since the collapse of the Soviet Union and the world, especially the third world countries, start to suffer more from the Western political economic policies. The world changed to be unipolar, and this caused the US and the EU to dominate the world, the third world countries, politically and economically. Through imposing their foreign policies on the world, especially the third world countries, so inequity and inequality spread all over the world, especially in Latin America, Asia, and Africa, and more exploit the Western countries impose on these continents. Also, Western countries, especially USA, impose on the third world countries that suffer from economic situation, the IMF rules that cause more people, especially the poor and the middle classes, to suffer, and classes differences increase. I mean, the gap of the classes increase in many countries. So poverty and chances to access to better life mainly in the third world countries was reduced a lot. Second, more international economic crisis increased due to the free market system that the USA and the EU countries, especially the capitalist countries, try to impose on many countries. The international economic crisis have circular features of the capitalist system. So the first countries that pay the bill, the first countries that pay the bill of this international crisis are the weakest link in the international economic system. And mainly these countries that have economic problems, especially the poor and the under middle classes in these countries. As an example, Greece, Portuguese, and Iceland in the financial crisis that paid the bill, what happened financial crisis in 2008. Third, West countries and the USA claim that because of the Russian-Ukrainian war, the price of food and fuel increased. But if we look to the international prices for the main food groups like wheat, we can find that international wheat price reached around $415 per ton from April up to June 2022, and it decreased to reach $316 per ton from July till September 2022. For international maize price, it reached about $342 per ton from April to June 2022, and it decreased to reach about $308 per ton from July up till September 2022. For the green inputs, especially chemical fertilizers, international urea prices reach about $774 per ton in the average from April to June 2022, and it decreased to reach $623 per ton from July up till September 2022. For international price for the triple superphosphate, prices reach about $810 per ton from the period from April to June, and it reduced up till $715 or $16 per ton from July up till September. If we look to the index number of the international food prices that reached about 156% from April to June 2022, it decreased up to reach 137% from July up till September 2022, comparing to the base year of 2010. For the international oil prices, it reached about $108 per barrel from April to June 2022, and it reduced up to $98 per barrel from July till September 2022, according to the Dubai crude oil. All this can be shown that international food and oil prices decreased, and the war is still running, which means that the war is not the main resource, not the main reason for the increasing in the international food and oil prices in the beginning of this year. But this is due to the inflation that happened in the developed countries. And this inflation happened due to that government expenditure on health sector increased a lot, especially in the EU countries, since they discover how weak they are in the health sector system when the COVID pandemic was happening during 2020. And due also to the monetary and fiscal policy that the EU countries and the USA applied in the last year to increase investments to solve the negative growth rates that happened during the COVID pandemic 2020. So they want to put the responsibility on Russia's side, while they are the main reasons for this economic crisis that happened all over the world and the world are suffering from. Fourth, in spite of all this, Russia's side made an agreement to export the stock of the Ukrainian wheat when the international wheat prices was high, to help the third world countries to buy their wheat needs and to help the internal wheat prices to reduce more. This agreement took place in Istanbul, in Turkey, in I think in July 2022. Since the Russian side agreed to export the wheat, the Ukrainian wheat, from the Black Sea ports to the world, but the world discovered that this wheat, only 4.5% of it goes to the poorest country only, while most of them go to the European countries. This illustrates to us that the main reasons for the Ukrainian are the Ukrainian side that is supporting from the capitalist countries, that the Ukrainian authority do not care about the poverty and solve the hunger in the world, but they only care to join the NATO, to be used by the USA and the EU countries, especially Germany, England, and France, to threat Russia and other countries in East Europe to trying to have their own developing models, as the USA and some EU countries are doing nowadays with China. Fifth, if we look to the poverty rate in 2021, before the war, according to the World Bank, in 2021, the estimated of 695 million people, or we can say 9% of the global population, are living in the extreme poverty, that is living on less than $1.9 per day. Over 1/5 of the global population lives below higher 3.2 poverty line, and there are almost 1.8 billion people, and over 2/5, they are almost 3.3 billion people lives below $5.5 per day. In September 22, an estimated was happened by the World Bank also, and it says that 674 million people, or about 8.9% of the global population, are living in extreme poverty line, and this does less than $1 per day. About 1.8 billion people of the global population lives below the higher poverty line, which is $3.2 per day. And about 3.6 billion people lives below $5.5 per day. This shows that the extreme poverty line decreased by about 24 million people, and this is due to China mainly, not for other countries. That's putting a very successful program to solve the poverty in China. For the second category, it remained almost the same. For the third country, for the third category, it increased about 315 million people. So we have to know that the countries that suffer from poverty are mainly in sub-Saharan countries and in South Africa and Asia. And these regions are being dramatically used by the West for many years, since it suffered from the French and British occupation for many years, and still till now, since most of these regions, especially sub-Saharan countries, their natural resources was taken by some of the EU countries and the USA, and they developed economic, and they depend economically on the EU countries, especially France. Finally, I would like to mention that as long as the capitalist and imperialism is nowadays, so human explanations will remain, and any trying from any nation to be independent and to create their own political and economic decisions or to return their rights back that was taken before, this international regime and the capitalist countries will stop it even by war, as in Palestine and in Iraq, or by economic embargo like Russia and China. So the unity of southern countries and learning and studying the international experience that have a real and successful experience in independency, like China, Russia, and Brazil, especially during Lula da Silva period. We have to understand it and to support it and to create world with no explanations and with no classes differences, saving the natural resources from demolish, so as to save this to the coming generations in a nice form through using these natural resources in an efficiency and effective way by the people and to the people. That's all the end for this word that I said, but I want to answer our friends from Russia about the experience, because he put this question about what Egypt did so as to solve or to reduce the wheat crisis problems, especially in the last year. I think Egypt, we actually, let's say the figures first. Egypt produced about 10 million tons from wheat, and the consumption about 22 million tons of wheat. So we import about 12 million tons. This 12 million tons shows our self-sufficiency is more than 50%. This 12 million tons, 80% of it come from Russia and Ukraine. 60% come from Russia. This was in 2021 and 2022, before the war. 60% come from Russia and 20% come from Ukraine, and the rest of 20% come all over the world. So Egypt tried to search and to find some other countries that export wheat. So we went to India and we import some wheat from India, but and in the same time, we are trying nowadays to increase the price, the area of wheat that's cultivated in the winter, in the coming winter, to reach about 4 million acres. And in the same time, Egypt start to build some modern wheat silos and to increase the storage of the Egyptian wheat from 1.5 from 6 years ago or 10 years ago, before the 2011 revolution, up till now 4.0 million ton our storage. And we are planning by the coming few years, we'll reach it to 6 million ton. In the same time, Egypt start to support and subsidize producers of wheat so as to encourage the farmers to produce wheat by giving them farm gate price, a good farm gate price, so increasing the farm gate price for wheat. I think, and in the same time, Egypt try to these farmers to give them good quality of seeds, so the productivity can increase. And we hope that our self-sufficiency of wheat will increase due to this, and we're going to see in the coming year. But I think that the food crisis all over the world cannot be solved, especially if the southern world put the main target, their hands by their hands, and try to solve this problem by helping from Russia, China, some independent country, because capitalism and imperialism never will get the third world country to solve this problem, especially the countries that import wheat and import their food and net food importers, because they are gaining from this. So the only solution for this is the South-South cooperation, so as to solve this problem and to create our own models, independently, like what Russia did, China and Brazil, and to learning this experience, a successful experience, and to try to create our own models to be independent, mainly to not to apply the IMF rules and the World Bank rules, because these two financial organizations, never will leave the third world countries to be independent, because these financial organizations mainly apply the agenda of the capitalism and imperialism countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fayad, for your presentation. I think very enlightening as well, your emphasis on that the global food crisis, which is actually a global food price crisis, not necessarily the same. It is the same in a capitalist economy. It is the same. Is not the result of the conflict in Ukraine, but of Western domestic policies and Western domination of the global food and other markets. This is, I think, very important. I also took an interesting note that you insist very much on the South cooperation, with which you finished actually. A similar idea, maybe different title, but a comparable idea to what the speaker before you, Özsaraç, called more with a maritime perspective, more with a Navy perspective, but at the end it was a South cooperation as well. Thank you for that. And I think your presentation, your words about how Egypt reacted concretely to the crisis of supply, it was also very enlightening. Now we are turning to the questions and answers sections, and I would like to invite all the participating journalists and all my colleagues from United World International to express their request for a question or for a comment via the chat function. And once they have the words, I would like to invite them to present them by name and organization. And at the beginning, if they're asking a question, say to whom the question goes to. So, do we have anyone with any questions? Here is here is a question from Mr. Özsaraç. Shall I read out the question? He asks to everyone, actually, why doesn't Russia send its grain through the states that use MIR, the alternative payment system? You sell to them and they sell to the needy. And are there any obstacles for doing this? Mr. Matuzov, this question, I would say, goes more to you. Why does Russia not send and sell its grain through the states that actively use the MIR payment system?
Well, I don't think that Russia have some restrictions to send according to the World Trade Organization rules to any place. We have a world market for grain, and we have opportunity to sell our grain to any country. But in these conditions, when Russia is undergone to very strict restrictions to by the United States and Western countries because of war in Ukraine. That's the main reason why opportunity of Russia is restricted. I can say that Russia is ready to provide not only by grains, but opportunity for Russia is about 40% of world production of fertilizers, azot, that will give product of grain increase 5 times more. That's why European countries were buying Russian azot fertilizers and using it and increasing the productivity of the harvest, wheat and grain. So I think that Russia is not the problem. The problem is as a current situation, political situation in the world. World, in my opinion, nowadays is under change. And this situation in the world policy, that what make very, very big troubles for free trade relations between the world, between the countries in the world. I think that the struggle is main purpose of the struggle. It is Russia against unipolar world, where United States and Western countries are dominating on political scene and, of course, on economical. We can see now the domination of Western countries in World Trade Organization as an example. Where is the rules that prohibited free trade between the countries? Because if United States doesn't like Russian policy, Russian behavior, they include World Trade Organizations as a weapon to fight Russia. So where is the free trade? Where is the opportunity to even world insurance companies for vessels who are bringing wheat to third world, to Europe, even by Russian? We cannot, because all insurance company for fleet of vessels in the world are prohibited by the decision of not the United States, not the Security Council, by the decision of the US government. Even European countries undergone to these restrictions. Look at Germany. The most important European countries undergone the restrictions. Why? By gas. It is suffering by a lack of gas production providing from Russia. About 40% of gas for Germany was Russian production. But now they lost this opportunity. That only not only for winter season, but also in the economy, also in the industry. Petrochemical industry of Germany is based on Russian gas and oil supply. And as it is said by Minister of Gas and Energy Industry in Qatar, and it is most important productive country by gas in the world. He said that no other countries can provide Germany with gas, and not only for Europe, Central Europe, Eastern Europe. So not Norwegian, not British, not Algeria, not any other countries can provide these needs of European countries in gas supply. So where is the World Trade Organization? Where is the interest of those countries who are pushed by the United States decision to a certain position? They refused. So the same thing with insurance company, the same thing in banking system, whereas Visa or SWIFT were prohibited. SWIFT cannot be used by Russian organizations because domination of United States in world currency policy. It is the instrument of fighting not instrument for free world trade organization, but for fighting those who America consider unhappy for them, for their own interests. So I think that this big problem, it is mostly political problem, not a Russian problem. Russia is ready to participate in trade relations with any countries on any conditions. Even fertilizers that were Russian fertilizers that were concentrated in European ports, for example, and they don't let use this mass of azote fertilizers in Europe to be sent and to be bought by African countries. Russia agreed to provide African countries free of charge. Take all these fertilizers without no money, because it is not, Russia has no opportunity to receive money, so it is ready to give this as a present to African countries. It is not the problem of our policy. It is problem of global change policy, because unipolar world is burning, and wanted the United States or doesn't want, we are witnessing the new world order, where domination of the United States on currency policy, on trade policy, on military policy, on political, diplomatical policy, they lost their position, even in the United Nations organization. Because, on my private opinion, United States privatized United Nations organizations after 1945, because main staff of all committees of the United Nations are privatized by the American political and diplomatical staff. And they are dictating the world, they dictate the agenda for all for all committees, for all branches of United Nations. So I'm not trying to tell that Russia is white and and no remarks. Of course, we have very critical, as for me, for example, very critical stand to Russian policy in economical field, as for inside as outside the country. Because I consider that we, as a country of Russia, lost ability to rule economical, to influence on economical rules by our foreign trade policy. Because all foreign trade policy are in the hand of corporations. Corporations of Russian origin, but if you look more attentively for their inside organizations, we found that the same Western countries are dominating in Gazprom, in Rosneft, in Chimprom, that is chemical industry, Azot, and so on. So, and energy, electricity companies are in the hand of American staff, American companies. That's why Russia is struggling for its independence in many fields. But Ukraine lost it absolutely. I mentioned that all wheat, all grain that were now sending from Odessa, Nikolaev, and Achakov, and Ismail, it is Glencore, it is Western owned company, crop. It is not Ukrainian. So how can Ukraine influence in what address it will be sent this wheat? To Djibouti, 23,000, I think, ton of wheat were sent to Djibouti and Ethiopia as a help through Turkey. And now we have a very good decision that for making a center for trading wheat and grain through Turkey. The same thing is considered to be for gas. Turkey as a center spreading all our opportunity in fertilizers, in grain, in gas opportunities. But what we watch a great pressure of the United States on Turkey, not let them to be supplier for African countries, for Asian countries, for European countries, because to punish Russia. So if the main goal of the United and Western, not only United States, Western policy will be main goal to punish Russia, they fail. They will fail, absolutely. We have opportunity. We survive. There is no problem for us. We have problem, but not big one. And so I think that according to the Russian policy to trade relations with other countries, I don't have any remarks for that. I have an idea that Russia is open for free, just trade according to the market conditions.
Just I would like to emphasize here on something about the mere payments. That Egypt,
that's right.
Yeah, that Egypt, in the Central Bank of Egypt in mid of September, they accept the mere payment to be accepted in foreign trade between Egypt and Russia to pay in ruble and not in dollars. And in the same time, because Egypt have a lot of foreign tourisms coming from Russia to Egypt.
That's right.
So Egypt accept the Russian tourism to pay in ruble through the mere system in this situation. So
and the same thing with Turkey.
With Turkey,
the same
and
thing.
Yes, I know this. Yeah, that's all. That's just to emphasize this and to clarify this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Here comes the next question from my colleague Mehmet Perinçek. I just read the question, Mehmet, if you agree with it. What role can the Ankara-Moscow axis play in resolving the food crisis and the Ukraine issue? In this context, what are Moscow's expectations from Ankara?
That's for me, I suppose.
Yes, I am both.
Thank you. I consider that Russian-Turkish political relations changed dramatically last years, because historically we were rivalries. We had quite a lot of wars between Turkey and Russia. Today, our common interests we found, because we are neighbors. We have very important economical ties. It begins from energy supply for gas, two lines of gas, Turkish line and the blue stream, and Turkish stream. And I think that the future is great, not only because Russia now consider Turkey like Egypt. It is their own home during summertime. I think, I don't remember figures, how many Russians going to Egypt, going to Turkey for enjoying their holidays in the summer season. I consider that main issue for current world economical situations, it is energy problem. We saw that in Europe during this struggle between West and Russia. Energy problem is a great meaning. And I think that cooperation Turkey with Russia on the base of energy basis, has a very big future. Not only gas, not only oil. Gas and oil, Turkey can buy from Iran, from Central Asian countries, and nowadays from even Egypt, when Eastern Mediterranean will be pushed for exploitation. But atomic energy, I consider that main chance now for future energy problems are for atomic energy. I listen quite a lot of our specialists in this field, and I'm sure that future of the world not in organic sources for energy, but atomic energy. I think that Akuya atomic station, and it is have that are built up not by Turkish government. It is built by Russian government on Russian money. $1 billion allocated to construction this atomic station in Turkey. And it will be exploiting this atomic energy on the prices lower than any other source of energy. We know that from our experience. We have hydro energy in dams. We have oil and gas providers of energy, and all twice or 3 times cheaper are atomic energy. Now Russia maybe have privilege. Russia maybe have privilege to be in the first row of technological solving security of atomic energy. I think that the beginning of the same way our collaboration with Egypt, who are now not finalized the negotiations, but I know that with Egypt, very good steps for future relations too. I think that we have many big projects for Central Asian republics, and especially solving energy problem in Central Asian country, Afghanistan, after withdrawal of United States forces, military forces from it. We have relations, we have remarks, we have special position on Taliban, but we mean from the beginning we see not only Taliban but Afghanian people who are needed, badly needed energy. We solve energy. After that, they can solve. It's a very rich country in many ways, and resources, natural resources, and agricultural resources. They have everything. So I hope that Russia have a big future on this way in collaboration with those countries who are ready to collaborate, with not only mir, but to how to avoid punishment banking system. I do hear right now that negotiations about grain, main grain company in Egypt, was finance banking support from Suez Bank. But Suez Bank is afraid of punishment from American, from world system. It is very dangerous for them. I don't think that it is something that we shall blame Egypt or Turkey, because even China, who has strong position, economical position, they also suffer the same problems in banking relations with Russia. Because banking, Chinese banks are afraid of to be enlisted as secondary punishment for dealing with Russian firms. So it is big problem. I think that we should regulate these problems on the basis of BRICS country, where now even main Arab countries now applied to BRICS organization, to Shanghai organizations. It is of approximately all Arab Gulf states, all Arab Gulf states, a traditional friends of the United States, are now ready to enter this organization, BRIC, Brazil, Russia, China, and South Africa. And now it may be also Arab states are joining maybe that in very future, as I heard it from informational sources. And the Shanghai Organization, where members Turkey, Iran, and also Saudi Arabia even. So world is changing rules, changing domination dollar. We don't against blindly to any currency, but if it spoil economical relations, world economical relations, trade relations, we should find another way for dealing with our friendly, as we say now, with our friendly states.
Thank you very much. Here comes a question from Captain Özsaraç, Mr. Özsaraç, to Dr. Fayad. Would you like to ask it yourself, Mr. Özsaraç, or shall I just read it?
No, I read the questions. I already read the question.
You read the question. Okay.
Yeah, here I read the question. Yeah.
Okay.
Increasing about the defense spending several times over the last 7 years, most Western arms. What could be the reason of this? Has it been changed injection threat? Actually, let me say that Egypt, I'm not formal representing Egypt, but I will say what I know, the weapons, and this is not my specialist. I'm a specialist in agricultural economy, okay? But what I know that Egypt started from, starting after the revolution in 2011, to diverse weapon resources. So yes, we took from France, from Germany, but also we took from Russia weapons, we took from Korean weapons, we took from China. So diversity of the source of weapons depend on it. This is one. Second, maybe the Western are more developed or whatever. I'm not exactly aware about this kind of this kind of weapons, okay? But second, let me emphasize something here, that in the nuclear power that we are building in Daba in northwest coast, we depend on the Russian experience, and Russia is helping Egypt to make this nuclear station in Daba in northwest coast. And we didn't take the France or the American or any other countries. We depend on the Russian experience to build our nuclear stations. So I think that the diversity is not bad to take this, but not to depend on other one resource, because in the previous past, before the revolution, 2011, especially during Sadat, after he made Camp David and Mubarak era, we 99%, maybe 10% was mainly America and France, Western weapons. That's to answer this question according to my limited experience. According to my limited experience about the weapons.
حتى آخر الساعة.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Here's a question of mine to Mr. Özsaraç. Stormy seas behind you, Captain. Stormy seas in the Eastern Mediterranean. You proposed Eurasian naval empire, which extends to the Eastern Mediterranean as well, and includes Egypt. Mr. Dr. Fayad from Egypt called the South-South integration. My question to you, what should Turkey do in order to contribute further to a Turkish Egyptian alliance in the Eastern Mediterranean or in Eurasia? What steps should Ankara take?
Well, all these are my own opinions. I mean, it is not a Turkish policy. I think first Turkey should go apart from NATO firstly. Afterwards, Turkey and of course Egypt should realize the geopolitical power of the seas. I mean, in Mediterranean, there are three countries very powerful, very powerful for the geopolitics. First, Turkey, Greece, and Egypt, because the geography narrows there. I mean, Suez, very narrow waterway, and Suez can control 1/3 of the all world's trade. It is an enormous power for Egypt, but Egypt don't want to use this power. I mean, if Egypt use this power, that means imperialism may easily be away from the Suez. The same geopolitical power for the Turkish Straits. I mean, by way of Montreux, Turkey doesn't want to use the geopolitical power. I mean, that doesn't mean we prison Russia in the Black Sea. I mean, if we cooperate with Russia, Egypt, all other Asians, we cooperate to use our geopolitical power easily. The reason for my offer to take the control of the Turkish Straits by Turkey and the Suez Canal by Egypt to push the imperialism from the Asia. I mean, I don't mean Eurasia, just Asia, because the Europe part of the Eurasia it is not easy for them to be taken apart from the United States and in England. It's not easy for them, but it's easy for Asia. It's why the first point to get rid of imperialism is to have all the advantages of the sea. If Asia maritimization happens in the Asia, and they can cooperate to use their all the military and navy power, they can easily protect their sea lanes, and all the Asian countries can get rid of the imperialism. And with this huge power, we can grow without imperialism. It's my idea.
Let me just to interfere in this point about how to get rid from imperialism by this. My point of view, if we want to get rid from imperialism, we have to build our real economy. The problem is that in some countries, and I'm not speaking about Turkey or I'm not speaking about any other country, but speaking generally, that the economy of the third world countries, and especially the powerful countries, and I will speak about Egypt because I know Egypt more than any other country, okay? The main source of the economy are coming from not productive sectors. This is a problem. If we want to get rid from imperialism, we have to build our own production in industrialization and agriculture. You have to be independent. Yeah, let me emphasize something about the inflation that's happening in Egypt. The inflation that is in America or in other countries, especially in Europe, are due to the increasing in the local demand. But in Egypt, the inflation mainly comes from what? From the increasing of the price of production, because our import elasticities are very low. We import our food, we import our inputs for industrialization. So the problem is that when you produce something, you put in very high cost. So when you put it in the market, you can't put it in a low cost according to the local purchasing power. So this is the main way to get rid from imperialism, to be independent. And I want to refer to the Chinese experience, regardless you are with or against. This is how China became a very powerful economic country. I want to infer to the Brazilian experience during Lula da Silva. He depended on two sectors mainly, industrialization and agriculture, and supporting the poor product that work in production. This is what I want to say. So this is step number one, or I call it step 0, to build our own strong, independent economy. This can be happened through an integrated by the South-South or regional integration economy. This is the problem. The problem is economically. This industrialization will make the site to be developed, awarenesses, and the production power, and the production relationship, and the type of production will be developed to be a modern production and to be modern production relationship. Because the problem is that the production relationship are in many countries, especially in the South, are mid-ages relationships, not a modern, not a 20th century or 21st century production relationship. This is the problem. So how we develop our technology, how we develop our industrialization, how we develop our agriculture, how to develop our economy to be independent economy. This is a problem. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I think it's a good contribution. Also, it corresponds to a degree, as far as I understand, to what Mr. Matuzov emphasized, that the global South or Asian countries need channels of interaction independent from US domination. This is the point of multipolar world, that our trade, our financial interaction, our ships, our vessels, our insurances are independent from US domination, US control, and their organization. So I think this is complementary to a certain degree, like a national independent economy and an international or regional economy that is independent from American financial currents, from American currency, which then enables to use such systems like the MIR system or anything else. So here comes the next question from my colleague Onur Sinan Güzaltan. He will ask his question live. Onur, are you there? You have the word. You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for your speech to all the speakers. And my questions to Mr. Matuzov and also Mr. Fayyad and also Mr. Halil, if you wish, he could answer the question. Do you think that there are opportunities for cooperation between Turkey, Egypt, and Russia in the Eastern Mediterranean Sea?
Let us start with from the north. Mr. Matuzov, would you like to begin?
Far north from Antarctic or Arctic, but it
You
is
just told that in summertime
it
you
is
have
the area of
multiple-
struggle between
Then
Russia
you
and
have
the
to be
United
biased to the
States.
south, so I start from the south. This is biased from the north.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, it is a very good question. I like this question, first of all. Why? Because I see that now, in spite of the fact that all contradiction between South countries, between Egypt and Turkey, between Israel and Turkey, between Israel and Egypt, between Israel and Syria and Libya and Algeria, with all Mediterranean area, basin. I think that we have a good chance to make this cooperation on very concrete issues. For example, this problem of gas supply, very big opportunity for Egypt, for Eastern Mediterranean countries who are ready to supply its gas opportunity to Europe, because Europe needs gas reserves more than even Russian. They eat every quantity of gas from all over the world: Mediterranean, Russia, Asian sources, Central Asian sources. That's why I think that main concrete point for collaboration, it is economical on energy issue. That's first. The second issue, that is stability, political stability in the region, Western Mediterranean. It is a very disbalanced situation in Syria, for example. They're going on struggle between one Arab countries and international organizations, terroristic organizations, Daesh, IGIL, Daesh organization, and the same thing we have stabilized. It should be stabilized the situation in those countries in the African continent. I know very well situation in Libya, for example. I get acquainted very closely with Mushir Haftar. I met him in Moscow many times. I know all people there, Agila Saleh Isa. I think that collaboration, Egypt, Turkey, and Russia, of course, can be with you. I demand from Russian foreign ministry, from Russian old people who are involved in all those problems, to coordinate its position not with the United States, not with European countries, because they have their own interests there. I'm not sure that they are interested in uniting these dissolved Arab states, Libya, very rich, very talented people. And I am sure that situation in Libya should be restored absolutely, in political mean, in economical, in demographical. And I think that Turkey and Egypt can play a very positive role and to find the solution. The same thing in the area to southern of Egypt. It is Sudan, it is Ethiopia, because I know that the president of Turkey in this region is always also strong. I know that from my experience, my experience with our discussion is our discussion with American representatives according to Port Sudan and Sudanese situation in Sudan, because they after the changing the government in Sudan, Americans have a very big chance to interfere in inside political situation in Sudan. and trying to dominate in it. I know very well from Sudanese sources, because I'm discussing very much on different Arab-speaking TV stations, that Sudan is trying to keep its independence position in economical, in military, in political situation. But pressing is from Western countries are great for all. So I think that Egypt, Turkey can, well, in the framework of building just and peace and peaceful situation in all over this region, Eastern Mediterranean, North Africa, and Asian, Central Asian countries. I think that collaboration to solving problems, not in the interest of domination, not Russian domination, not Turkish domination, not Egypt, but in the interest of those independent countries. I think it is main principle that could unite our joint efforts for this area.
Thank you very much, Mr. Özsaraç. Can you hear me?
Yes. If a country wonder how strong it is, it should look at the sea mirror. I mean, if a country goes very distant seas, oceans, that means that country is strong enough. Russia, Turkey, and Egypt have the same problems. I mean, we need distances, and we can easily solve this problem by way of naval bases. I mean, Turkey can give Russia a naval base just outside of the Çanakkale Strait or Mersin, in front of Cyprus. But I want a base in Arctic. I mean, the mutual relations should be in balance. I mean, there are some NATO bases, American bases in Turkey, but I don't have any base in the United States of America. I mean, the relations are not mutual. Just imperialist relations are just inside the NATO. But I need Russian base in Arctic. I want to be in a very distant sea, and I may let Russia to be Mediterranean, a naval base on Turkey in Turkish coasts. I can give Egypt a base too, but I want a base in Red Sea or very near to Bab el-Mandeb, because I want to go to the distances. If I am in the distances, Turkey is strong. If Russia in the distances, Russia is much more stronger, much stronger. If Egypt in Mediterranean is Mediterranean more, or West Mediterranean, or in the oceans, that means Egypt is stronger. That's why we should cooperate on the naval basis, and it's not so difficult. But first, Turkey should go out of NATO for all this. Turkey's being in NATO is a great problem for Turkey and for Asia countries.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fayyad. How about exchanging naval bases Or
Yeah.
what do you think generally?
No, look, I want to answer.
You're not the representative of the Egyptian
Of
government,
course,
we
yes.
know.
Yeah.
So we will not insist to get a military, a naval base, but
Okay.
what is your
Just
opinion?
I want to answer the cooperation between Turkey, Russia. Oh, sorry for this because I'm closer to the windows, so this came. I want to answer the cooperation between Russia, Turkey, and Egypt in this issue because this is very smart and important question because this will affect not only the Eastern Mediterranean, but also we can affect all over the world. Especially the third world countries. I think that this cooperation can depend on, I will answer this in two axes. First axe about the direct cooperation between Egypt and these two countries. Egypt is making, this cooperation can be dependent on technology because I think that Russia is very developed countries in technology and have a very good experience and have their own technology. So investments in technology and how can we use Russian technology and also the Turkish technology because Turkey have a very good experience in this. Egypt is not like this, like Russia or Turkey in technology space. So I think that it's important for cooperation in technology so as to understand the new technologies that comes from Russia technology or Turkish technology or even other countries' technology. And also, Egypt have a very cheap labor, so investments comparing to other. So the what we call it the الميزه التنافسيه اللي هو so to go through the international market and to compete in the international market by cheaper labor, this will give us a very big advantages and to us to compete and in the international markets about this. First, Egypt have a cheap labor. And at the same time, even during the conflict that it was between Egypt and Turkey in the previous years, and nowadays it became more better, the relation between Egypt and Turkey. The investments, Turkish investments in Egypt didn't stop. The trade between Egypt and Turkey didn't stop at all. You know, there is a lot of investments, Turkish investments in Egypt. So if we depend on investments, depend on technology, depend how to create an economic relations between these three countries, this will give the powerful for more cooperation. This is from one side. From the other side, about and also Russia have investments in Suez Canal zone, a big Russian investment in Suez Canal zone, and this can help also the cooperation between the three countries in this. One of the biggest zones in the Suez Canal zone are the Russian zone and the Russian investments in the zone. And at the same time, participating and became a member in Shanghai organization that Egypt asked to apply in Shanghai organization and also other countries. And if Shanghai organization accept Egypt as a full member, so this will give us to be understanding each other very well and give us a very good cooperation in this issue, especially that Shanghai organization is not like other organizations in the Western, but they spend mainly on the infrastructure and to rebuild the countries, especially that for the Asian infrastructure bank, Asian infrastructure bank, investments bank, sorry, Asian Investment Bank. This bank can play a very good role and to build a good infrastructure in other countries, especially in Egypt and also in Turkey and other countries. The BRICS organization, if Lula da Silva succeeded in the elections that coming in 30th of October, this will give the BRICS organization to be rebuilt again and to play a very important role, especially that these BRICS have Russia, China, Brazil, South Africa, and India. And these 5 countries almost the very promoted economics in the near coming time. So by this kind of collaboration between, especially in economic and in technology and in research, this can make the cooperation between these 3 countries to be a very good cooperation, regardless, and also plus what our friend about Halial, excuse me for the name because it's a bit difficult to me to pronounce it. The operation in the Navy and in the East Mediterranean region, this will give us a very good cooperation between these. And I do think that these kinds of cooperation between Egypt and Libya, and cooperation between Egypt and Sudan, and but just to solve the problem in Libya, and the Libyan people can solve their problems, and they have the right to solve them by the way they want. And I think that we don't have to interfere in this kind of issue, because this is another issue. So this kind of cooperations between these 3 countries can solve also the problem between solve the problem in Syria, and can solve the problem in Libya, and can solve the problem also in Sudan. So this can make the imperialism and this country to be set aside. I'm not saying to be away at all, but to be set aside from imposing their policies on a country like Egypt or a country like Turkey, or to threat Russia by putting a regime in Ukraine and other countries that take the Donbass and make a terrorist action against the people in Donbass, and they are Russian people, by the way. So this kind of cooperation can solve the and it can solve the problem, especially if they related and they link the interests for the people. Yani, me as Egyptian, I have my interest will be linked by your as a Turkish, by the other person as a Russian. So even if the conflict between governments happens, but there are direct benefits for the people in these 3 countries, this in conflict will be in the minimum level, because the people will refuse this kind of conflicts, because their own benefits will be affected directly. So by technology, cheap labor, investments, Shanghai Organization, BRICS to be rebuilt again, and the Asian Infrastructure Bank, by these 3 issues, to make a strong relation economically. And I always speak about it in economics, because economics and production relations will develop the societies, and will put the road to be clear in front of us to build a real society with no explanations and with no or from, as I used to say, the socialist society that I dream to be rebuilt in the future.
Dr. Fayyad, would you like to answer the question which comes from my colleague Shafak Erdem? He has written it on the right side. Have you read it already?
It is possible to prevent this on the grand street market. How can we control a big financial and trade companies be prevented in free market, which usually cause big financial and trade companies? Let us say about the free market. About free market, it's not exist in the world. Yeah, and don't say to me that there is a free market in the world.
Bravo.
What?
Bravo.
Thank you. Don't say to me there's free market in the world. No. Even capitalist countries, if they say and they are a free market and we are fighting to create a free market, they are fighting to create a market that serves their own benefits. But if this free market will affect their own benefit directly, they will collapse the free market. And they have the excuses they created from many years ago, like democracy. And when I hear free market, I hear, I remember what we call it Western democracy. What kind of Western democracy? And the people even in some countries, some Western countries, are suffering from hunger and suffering from low expenditure, from low income, and suffering from not preventing them good social services. So, yeah, this kind of free market and the Western democracy are fake words so as to serve the West benefits mainly, and not to serve our thing. So when you go to the free market with agreements, even the Uruguay round or the World Trade Free or the World Trade Organization, they put the conditions for the World Trade Organization to serve their own benefits. And if you try to protect your local production by putting some tariffs on them, or to put some restriction to import something, they try to or they make pressure on you according to the free trade organization to remove it in a very fast period of time, because they don't think that, and because they only seek for their own benefit, as I said before, and they can control a big financial and trade companies. Financial and big companies, I think that to create financial and trade big financial trade companies, actually, I'm afraid from this kind of big companies, because any company will play the role of the capitalist. They will try to have direct benefits with the capitalist countries in East Europe, as it mentioned before, that even the Ukrainian companies that export wheat during the previous 2-3 months was mainly not Ukrainian companies, they was European companies. So this kind of free companies are not exist at all, because free and financial and trade companies are mainly their own benefits, and the owners of these countries mainly their benefits come to the Western and come to the capitalist systems, usually big financial trade. So I don't think that this kind of companies and this free trade will solve the problem. Solving the problems of the food crisis by production and by cooperation between the West, South, and helping some with help of some other countries like Russia and like China. This is the only way to solve the problems. And if we speak about how to solve this kind of food prices and food production, because the problem are two: food prices and food production. So this is another issue to speak in. How can we solve the food production, and how can we solve the food prices, and the way how and what policies and what strategies we want? This is another issue, and I don't want to interfere in it, because this will take a very long discussions how to create this kind of production of prices and production. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Here comes I think this is the last question, it seems, from Mr. Işıkgün Akfırat, writing for the Turkish daily newspaper Aydınlık. Question goes to Mr. Matuzov and Mr. Özsaraç. My colleague Akfırat asks the following: Russia adopted a new naval doctrine and emphasized the Eastern Mediterranean as an important region for the country's economic development and security. This is another specific area of cooperation for the Ankara-Moscow axis. What can and should be done regarding this? Do you think we see joint drills, joint Turkish-Russian drills in the near future, as we saw them in the recent times between Russia and Algeria, which conducted a joint naval drill in the Mediterranean? So this time, let us start with from the south, from Mr. Özsaraç, and then we listen to Mr. Matuzov.
to the Arctic bears.
Pardon me?
Beg your pardon?
My answer will be very short. We should. But we have we are in NATO. After going out to NATO, we should. We have lots of things to do for the Asia's security together with Russia, Egypt, China, Iran, and other Asian countries who are unhappy with the imperialism. We have a lot of things to do. One of them should be, of course, joint drills in the near future in the Mediterranean, Pacific, Indian Ocean, Arctic. We should do all the naval joint drills together in the future, of course. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Matuzov, what's your opinion about that?
Well, I
new
think that
Russian
sea doctrine, marine doctrine of Russian Federation, of course, it is a document that a very principal document concerning the Russian strategy in the world. It concerning the activity of Russian in sea and oceans, not only Mediterranean, but Indian Ocean and Pacific and Atlantic, in many places, because we are now facing increasing role of sorry, necessity to be strong for defending ourselves, not strong to make attacks on anyone. Because even the situation in Ukraine, I am sure, privately, my inside opinion, that we were obliged to interfere, to prevent ourselves for security from NATO organizations, because it was plans to spread. Because, in spite of the fact that after ruining the Soviet Union, NATO and United States presidents and European presidents promised not to spread NATO to Russian frontiers. Where now NATO? In Baltic states. It is 400 kilometers from St. Petersburg. Or in all Eastern bloc, Warsaw bloc countries. So we don't believe in words, we believe in deeds. If the United States planning to establish NATO base in Ukraine, and now we see that these plans of the United States are based not on pure words. They are really used their opportunity that Russia gave them during the last 30 years. And I think that they didn't use properly their opportunity to construct Russian-American, Russian-Western relations on proper way. I think that the North doctrine, marine doctrine, is based not on aggressive goals, but on the base of preventing security and stability in the area surrounding Russian Federation. Because Ukraine became a subject of Russian interference military because we feel uncomfortably in the face of destroying stability, destroying, creating unfriendly anti-Russian regimes, connecting with Nazi principles, and we are were against them. That's the reason why I explained where. So marine doctrine is based on principle of stability and security. Security, Russian, not only Russian, or regional security. And if Egypt have all common interests, for example, our needs to be in that way or that way presented in Indian Ocean. That means Red Sea, that we need collaboration in any questions that connected with security and stability with Egyptian government. Of course, with Turkish government, because all this Bosphorus, Dardanelles, this is the very sensitive issue, places for Russian strategy. And of course, northern country, at Arctic area, because it is in some way, maybe it is rivalry to Suez Canal, and it opened way from Arctic Sea to from Europe to our Far East. So we have quite a lot of interest to cooperate. I'm sure that main principle should be implemented when we are organizing our, let's say, collaboration in the framework of some regional organizations like SHOS, like BRICS, or even European Union. We are not against the European Union. I believe that Russia have reasons to keep European Union in a good relations with Russia. We are not interested in destroying Europe, because Europe is a main partner in trade relations, in technological relations with Russian Federation. Why we should destroy this country or dominate on Europe? No, we are trying to prevent our rights, our independence, not to be involved in some, as you say, neo-colonial or one pole oriented world. So I think that we have find our common choice in stability and regional stability and regional security. This principle, by the way, we suggested to even Gulf states, Arab Gulf states, about 15 years ago. The same thing, because we have privileged relations now with Iran, this is the neighbor of Turkey, and we have developed relations with Saudi Arabia. For example, I am fantastically changes in our relations with Islamic world is Saudi Arabia. And Emirates, visit of Emirates president to Russia, to St. Petersburg meeting, it reflects that they all those states are interested in stability and security. And Russia doesn't engage in any anti-Arab activity, not anti-Islamic activity. We consider ourselves a member of Islamic cooperation. Well, I forget about
Islamic Cooperation Organization.
Organization, yeah. Because we are member for as required part of this organization. We have Islamic population in our country. So I think that it is main point not to be on all our policy based on any kind of domination, dictate, or any other. Equal rights. We have no small countries, big countries, we should be on the equal leg to respect the interests of our neighbors, to respect our even small countries, but they have own interests. For example, Belarus, we have right now, they are trying to create an industry independent from Russia. I consider, my private opinion, they're absolutely right. They shouldn't be eaten by Russian corporations. I hate Russian corporations, but I love Belarusian companies who are independent. They keep their industry, they kept their technology. They're very well developed. I know that Belarusian trucks, Mazman, they are demand in the Gulf area. Hundreds of them demanded because prices are lower, quality is the same that man trucks. So I think that that collaboration is very possible in any ways. Even Turkey is NATO organization member. I don't think that it prevents to collaborate with Turkey for many years before that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Matuzov. My first conclusion of this webinar, grain is not only grain, and
right.
Mr. Österreich has told us made us a great presentation about the history of it, of food. And the other, Mr. Matuzov and Mr. Fayad emphasized very well that its context in political economy and imperialism, where grain serves as a means, as a weapon, including or domination. Secondly, and maybe even more importantly, I observed a great desire and a great need for talks, debates, exchange of ideas between these three countries. I'm starting now from the South, Arab Republic of Egypt, the Republic of Turkey, and the Russian Federation. And I think it is noteworthy that we started with the grain agreement, but we covered a broad range of issues, which went from banking system to exchange of naval bases, from industrial cooperation to technological cooperation. And I think this has a reason that it is actually, these topics are well connected. And I think there seems to be a consensus as well on the observation, which we included in our title, the quest for a multipolar world. Mr. Matuzov insistently and correctly, in my view, underlined that this is a struggle against the unipolar world. This is not just the United States against, this is not the Russia against Ukraine. It is not even only Russia against the United States. It is the struggle between the unipolar world concept and the multipolar world concept. And I think we have today, though none of us is an official government representative, we have touched on several ideas what the multipolar world can mean for our countries, for Russia, Turkey, and Egypt, and what opportunities it bears. And I would like to thank you all. I would like to thank Dr. Sherif Fayyad from the Arab Republic of Egypt. I would like to thank Captain Halil Özsaraç from the Republic of Turkey. And I would like to thank Mr. Vyacheslav Matuzov from Russia. Are you in Moscow, sir, or are you in
Absolutely, all the time.
You are in Moscow, and I would like to thank to you
Former
for your
diplomat.
presentation. Former diplomat. I would
Arabist.
like to thank you for your presentation, and I would like to thank my colleagues for their extremely good questions. And on behalf of the United World International website and institution. I would like to thank you all very much. And hereby, well, close to almost 3 hours after we have started, I am honored to finish this webinar, and hope to see you again very soon to get deeper into all these proposals and ideas which were announced today. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, and nice meeting you all.
That's it.
Yeah. And
You are great. Like Neil.
no, you
Nile.
are good also, because
Nile really
I
is
do
great
think
river.
that Putin is the best.
Okay, we'll try to do our best.
Really,
All of
do
us.
your best. Do your best.
That's
And
it.
let me say something that even
We'll do it. We'll
do
do
your
it.
best. And even I think
That's
that
it.
even Egyptians here in
No other way.
even Egyptians here, they do support
I know,
the
I
Russian. I
know
do
that.
support Putin.
Thank
Let me
you.
say this. Yeah.
I love the Egyptian, all political analysts I'm meeting in the area. Okay,
Thank you and good luck,
Okay.
and be strong.
it's the best. Okay, we are.
Yeah. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
you so much, and hope to see you in Cairo soon.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.